Hi, everybody. Welcome, friends. I am Ms. Holly from the East Grand Rapids branch, and I have been teamed up with Courtney from the Kentwood and Gaines branches, and we are here to talk to you about realistic fiction for young readers. So, what is realistic fiction besides one of my favorite genres? You wonder? It is a genre that tells a story that seems or could be real, okay? But it separates itself from nonfiction because the characters are fictional, okay? So it's something that you feel like you could have experienced yourself, okay? And the characters can be people or animals. So it's really a great genre, and I hope you enjoy the books that we've selected for you today. One of my recommendations for realistic fiction is the Mo Jackson series. Okay, so remember Field Day? We called it Field Day. Maybe they still call it Field Day when you go out with your summer camp or your class in school and you do a bunch of fun games like potato sack racing, or yeah, there's potato sack racing. Or maybe it's the one where you carry the egg on the spoon. Remember the egg race? Yeah. Or when you have the tie ropes around your feet, your legs, your partner's legs, and you have to like run, called like the three-legged race. Those are such fun team games. And those are some of the games that are featured in this series. So Mo is on Team Guppies and it's summer camp and he has gone off to the field and he is ready for some serious competition because they're going to win ice cream. Oh, that sounds so good. I like Blue Moon ice cream, one of my favorite flavors, but they are going to run a bunch of ice cream for their team. Okay, so they have to like do really well, right? So Mo is he's pretty up for the challenge. He is kind of small in stature, but that doesn't stop him. He is ready to jump in and he always does his best. Okay, so they do the three-legged race and the potato sack race. Yeah, and they're winning medals and everyone seems to be doing really well. And they're all thinking about ice cream, of course. All right. And so then the very last competition, the very last race is a swim race where you get swim, Mo, swim title, right? So Mo jumps in, all right, and he is super excited to swim, and it's in a lake. And he swims his best with a little bit of help from something nibbling at his toes in the lake that made him swim extra fast. So this is a series, quite. So this is the Mo Jackson series by David Adler, and he also wrote the Kim Jansen mystery series. If you've read those before, and he's taken on to sports writing, which is really great. So if you are a sports lover or you're passionate about competition, this is really good. There's a little laughter in it too, and I think this would be great for our first or third graders. And there's a little bit longer sentences, but you still have all the pictures for content clues. And yeah, the plot is a little more developed. So it's a really fun read. So check out this series, okay? The Mo Jackson series by David A. Adler. Another one of my recommendations for realistic fiction is the Mindy Kim series. Okay, it's this one is the Yummy Seaweed Business, and it's by Lila Lee, and it is illustrated by Dong Ho. And this is about Mindy, whose mother passed away, and her dad got transferred to a new job. And they used to live in California. Now they've moved to Florida. So that is a long way. That's like moving across the country. And so Mindy is a little nervous. She's got a lot of new things she has to get used to, a new neighborhood, a new house, passing of her mother. Her dad is pretty sad about it. There's a lot of sadness there, and Mindy's really trying to help him become happier, maybe by getting a puppy. And yeah, and then she's got school. So this book is a lot about getting used to a new school and trying to find new friends. So Mindy, on her first day, she has some challenges. First, her teacher couldn't pronounce her Korean name, Minyoung, and that's why she has a nickname Mindy, which kind of drives Mindy crazy that she has to have a nickname. And then she was at lunch, and this is where it all starts. So she's at lunch. She just kind of said, "Hey, can I sit here?" And they said, "Sure." And then she opens up her foods, which are packed away by her dad in her lunchbox. And they're Korean foods. So there's kimchi and seaweed and rolled eggs and rice, which to me sounds amazing and yummy. But that's not what all the other kids are eating. The other kids are eating gummy bears and Oreo cookies and peanut butter sandwiches. So she feels a little different. And they all say, "You're eating seaweed? Ew, gross." And she's like, it's really good. I mean, it tastes really good. Have you tried it? And they're like, no way. And so right off the bat, she's feeling really sad. And so the next day, she doesn't want to go to school. Do you blame her? But her dad's like, gives her a little push, a little kiss, and says, you know what? You're going to be fine. Just, you're going to make friends just like you did in your old school. So Mindy tries again, and this time she friends a classmate named Sally, and she says, "Hey, can I sit there and with you at lunch?" And she says, "Absolutely, that'd be fine." And so she goes, "Oh," and Sally goes, "Oh, what are you eating?" And she says, "Oh, I'm eating seaweed." And she's like, "Can I try it?" And she says, "Sure." And Sally eats it, and she's like, "Oh, this is so good." And so that makes everyone else want to try the seaweed, which is the beginning of the yummy seaweed business. So Mindy starts up a seaweed business, which has its ups and downs. And yeah, any starting business has ups and downs, right? Well, Mindy's does too. So, she's facing a lot of challenges and typical from being a new kid on the block, right? But yeah, so you're gonna really like the series. So I think author Lila Lee, she does a great job of balancing the story with love and compassion at the same time discussing Minnie's experiences as a young Asian American. Yeah, so the early chapter book, it incorporates some larger vocabulary words, which is really good. It lends itself well to like first, third graders, I would say, looking for a little bit more of a challenge in reading. Yeah, and there are also some comforting illustrations. So written by, illustrated by Dung Ho. Like you can see here, he really does a really good job of see, looking at the emotion of the character and bringing that into the story. This is how she feels when she's being laughed at about her food. Yeah, and compassion from her father. And yeah, it's a really like the illustrations is kind of sporadically peppered throughout the book. And yeah, it's really wonderful. So this is available in a book form. It's also ebook form, and it's also an audiobook. So check out Mindy Kim and the Yummy Seaweed Business by Lila Lee. All right. The last book I want to talk about in our realistic fiction genre is The Camping Trip by Jennifer K. Mann. And one of my favorite things to do is to browse the picture books. And I know that I work in the library and I'm a librarian, but I think other people also feel the same way. It's just you go in there and you're like looking at the covers and you're like, oh, and then this one jumped out at me because it's about camping. And I love camping. All right. I still sleep in a tent. Then I realized that not everyone has had this experience of camping before. And I remember my first time. And so I picked up this book, and this is about a little girl, Ernestine, who has never been camping. She was invited by her aunt and her cousin to go for the first time. And first, she doesn't know what she's getting into. And then she's like, well, first you got to pack, right? So with camping, there's a lot of things that you have to pack. So her aunt sends her a list. And so there's the list. Look at all that stuff. You got to have your camping sleeping bag. You got to have your sweatshirts and socks and a swim mask. And her dad makes her trail mix for the trip, which is awesome. And of course, don't forget your underwear. Got to have underwear. So there's so much stuff. And then you pack it all up and then you stuff it in your car and you wave goodbye to your dad. Bye, Dad, who she's going to miss. And you set off from the city in your car all the way to the countryside where you find a campground. And look at these illustrations. Okay, now if you look really close, you notice that the illustrations are actually collage. So that's like book pages that have been cut out to make it look like mountains. Even the reflection on the water. It's just amazing. I just absolutely could turn this picture book page by page and just stare and appreciate it. And another thing that's really cool about this picture book, not only is the storyline really interesting, but it kind of has this like graphic novel feel to it. So it's a nice picture book, graphic novel hybrid, and there's speech bubbles and everything like that too. So if you like that genre, you'll like this picture book. So you know what? She gets a lot, camping is the first experience, and with camping comes a lot of other first experiences. And I think I've been talking about that actually a lot with her other books. But she's never swum in a lake. She's used to swimming in a pool. And you know that swimming in a pool and swimming in a lake are very different because there's like things inside lakes, right? And there isn't chlorine. So there might be like seaweed, and there's going to be fish, and what else is in the lake? I don't know. I remember diving under in the lake, and I had my goggles on, and I was swimming along, and all of a sudden I was looking at a fish, like a big huge carp, and I just screamed. I floated up to the top. I'm like, oh, but that's swimming in a lake, and I still swim in the lake today. I love it, but it's different, right? So she's kind of like, I don't know, there's fish in there. I don't know. So she kind of stays on the shore and doesn't go in. But with camping, you get to experience some of the best things, right? Like digging for bugs. Of course, you want to dig for bugs. And you also want to eat some s'mores, of course. Oh my gosh. There's nothing better than an ooey gooey, sticky, chocolatey, yummy s'more that's just smoked over the fire. Oh, it's the best. It's the best. So she has all these really good experiences, but then it's time for bed. And sleeping in a tent at night is kind of scary. And it can be kind of lonely. And she starts to get homesick. I mean, who hasn't been homesick, right? I have been homesick before too. So her aunt and her cousin help her by going out and looking at the stars. Look at that beautiful illustration. I mean, that is just beautiful. And, the story goes on. And I think she ends up really liking her camping experience. And I'm not going to spoil it. I don't know if she goes swimming or not. Well, I do know, but you don't know. So you're going to have to check out the book, The Camping Trip, to figure out if she actually goes swimming in the lake. All right. And it's by Jennifer K. Mann, who's also the illustrator. So another great realistic fiction genre book. Yay. Okay, one more thing. I talked about the 2-page layouts, which are beautiful. But they say it's for, 5 to 10-year-olds. But I'm 50 and I love this. So picture books are for every age. So check it out.
Thank you so much, Miss Holly, for sharing those books with us. I'm really excited to check out the book that you talked about a camping trip, just because camping might be something I'm into this summer. So maybe if I read a picture book about it, I will feel more comfortable going camping. But to continue on with the picture book thing, I have a few books that I would like to share for you. But before I get into that, I want to tell everyone about what month it is. So it's the month of May, and in the month of May, we celebrate Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So that's where we read stories and we learn about Asian and Pacific Islander culture and the history. And we just read stories about Asian joy, and it's really exciting. So, the titles that I have picked out for us all feature Asian characters. So, I'm excited to share those. And the first one is these picture books. These are both about Amy Wu. They are by Katie Zhang, and they're illustrated by Charlene Chua. Hopefully I said those right. But this is Amy Wu and the Perfect Bow, and this is Amy Wu and the Patchwork Dragon. So in the Perfect Bow, so a bow is like a steamed dumpling of sorts. It's a pretty cool and tasty Asian dish. I have had it before, and Amy, who's very small, is trying to perfect how to make the perfect bow. So she's made them too small. She's put too much stuffing in them. She just isn't sure how to make the perfect one. So she gets help from her mom and her dad and her grandma, and she kind of knows. So she kneads the dough, and then she has to pinch it. Look at that concentration. I love these illustrations. So there's her mom, her dad, and her grandma with their perfect bows. And Amy just can't get it. Just can't figure it out. So, of course, she does finally make it. And the best part about this book is that in the back is the instructions, the recipe, that's the word, to make your own. So you could try this. So once you read the book, you could try to make your own. But yeah, it says to be sure to ask for a trusted adult to help you. So make sure you ask a grown up. So that's Amy Wu and the Perfect Bow. I might actually try that this weekend. Then we have Amy and the Patchwork Dragon. So Amy and her classmates are learning about dragons in school and different kinds of fire-breathing dragons, and they have to draw their own dragon. Well, the dragon that Amy draws is this one, and it looks really skinny, which isn't like a dragon that their teacher showed them, but it is like a dragon that Amy has seen before, and her grandma reminds her about dragons in China. So in Chinese New Year, there's like celebration with a dragon. And so here's the costume. And so Amy shows her friends that there are different types of dragons. And she brings it to school. And look at that cool dragon. Look how much fun they're having. It's just a cute book. I love the illustrations. I think they're really darling. And this is one of my favorite picture books that I've read recently. The other book series, one of the 3 series I'm going to talk about is Sam Wu series. So there are 4 books. I only have 3. So one of them must be all checked out. Hi, Minnie. My dog keeps going back and forth and back and forth. But so Sam Wu, and they are by Katie and Kevin Sang. Sam Wu is quite the character. He is a very interesting boy. There he is with his amazing hair. I really want to know if that's natural or if he has to use a lot of hairspray. But he is a very dramatic boy. I think dramatic would probably be the best word, and imaginative. So he has this imagination that runs 1,000,000 miles per second, it seems. So in this book that I just finished, it's Sam Wu is Not Afraid of the Dark. And in this book, it's about to be spring break. And Sam's best friend Bernard is telling him in the beginning about how his dad is going to take them camping. And Sam and Zoe, their other best friend, are really trying to hype Bernard up and tell him it's going to be great. You're going to have so much fun. Don't be afraid of the bears. It'll be fine. Little does Sam know that Bernard is going to share that information with his dad, and Sam and his cousin Stanley, who's visiting from Hong Kong, are going to be going camping too. He did not see that coming. And as you know, outside in nature, it gets really dark when it's nighttime. Like if there aren't any street lights or house lights or anything like that, it's really dark. All you have are the stars and the moon. And if it's cloudy, you don't even have those. But Sam's not afraid. I think he is. So when they go to bed, they hear these noises and they think all these bad things, especially after Stanley tells some scary stories. Probably not the best idea when you're already a little panicked. So the first night they hear all these noises and they freak out. And then they decide the second day that they're going to go looking for this noise. They can't find it. So then they decide, because they end up camping near some of Sam's friends and his kind of enemy, Ralph. Ralph isn't a very nice kid. Just going to say he's not very nice. But so they decide to take shifts. And of course, it's nighttime. They fall asleep. So they still don't know what that noise is. So are they going to find out? Is it going to be something like a bear, or is it going to be something maybe a little more or a little less scary? But you have to read it. And so in this one, there's also one where he talks about sharks, how he's not afraid of sharks, where he goes to the beach. And of course, not afraid of spiders. How many of you are afraid of spiders or sharks or the dark. I think we all have some fears, and Sam has a lot of them. But these ones are really great, and they are for great for friends who like the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books or Big Nate books or the Dog Man books because they're really fun with illustrations. I also like this one because when it's dark out, that's Ralph. In the dark scenes, it has dark pages. So I think that's a really cool way that the author and illustrator chose to kind of show that it was dark. So they go in a cave, but there are some illustrations throughout. But I thought these were really funny, and Ralph is a funny character, and Sam is just hilarious. And Zoe and Regina, who are the two girl characters in this, are just super adventurous and fun. So I really enjoyed this book. The last book series that I'm going to talk about is the Front Desk series. So Front Desk came out a few years ago. It's by Kelly Yang, and the sequel to it, Three Keys, just came out a few months ago. So I believe there is a third book coming. But these books are based on Kelly Yang's real life when she was a girl. So it takes place in like the early 90s, I want to say, in California. And it focuses on Mia, who's our main character. There she is working the front desk. And so her family, her and her parents, immigrated from China. So they came over to California from China to see what America was like, to see the freedoms that were provided in America, and to try something new. When they got here, though, they didn't have a lot, so they had to, for a little while, live in their car. There's a really scene that just kind of breaks your heart, where Mia talks about how they went to this museum and they in the food court they had these giant burgers and they just didn't have enough money to get one for everyone. So they ended up splitting it between the three of them. And it's just a really heartwarming story about how much her parents try to provide for her and how they want her to have the opportunities that they think wouldn't have been available in China that are available in the United States. So when they see this opportunity to run this motel or hotel, they jump on it. So it's Mr. Yao, and he owns this hotel. He owns a bunch of hotels, and he tells them if they run the hotel, they get a certain amount of money for every guest. But what he doesn't tell them is there are stipulations. So it's after a certain number of desk or guests are checked in. I think the weeklies don't count. There's just so many like that fine print that they didn't know when they agreed to do it. But it gives them a place to live, it gives them a job, and even though they don't get too much money from it, it is still something. It's a starting point, and they make do. And so things happen. It's also a really good story about accepting yourself and found family. So the hotel has some regulars that live there, and so Mia gets to know them. She gets to know Hank, who's one of my favorite characters. I absolutely love Hank. He's just a great character. And she also has to go to school and she has to deal with being different. So Mia isn't very good at math. She's not very good at writing. And so it's hard for her to make friends at first. And it's just really heartwarming. And some stuff happens that I won't spoil for you because you have to read Front Desk. But then in Three Keys is the next school year. So this is fifth grade, this is sixth grade. And Jason, Mia, and Lupe are going through sixth grade. It's also a time where immigration is kind of a big topic, as it is still today. And it's interesting to see the different perceptions of the kids in Mia's class and as well as her teacher. And so Mia kind of learns that she has more in common with some of her classmates than she thought she did. And she talks about how immigrants are hardworking, and they are, and things like that. And she has to combat some misconceptions that she has and some things that her teacher says that she doesn't necessarily agree with, because Mia has a big heart and she knows a lot of immigrants and she knows how hard they work to make ends meet. And so when her teacher says things like they're costing California this much money, Mia can't help but speak her mind and speak her heart. And it gets her in a little bit of trouble, not gonna lie. But it's just a really good story again about that found family as well as her own family. So her parents are kind of, for the first time since they've moved to America, they have funny. They can spend money, not a lot of money, but they can spend money on things. And it's just interesting to see how the story folds. They have some of the greatest characters in here. You're going to fall in love with them. So, again, you need to read Front Desk first and then pick up Three Keys. I hope you love them as much as I do. I hope you love their stories as much as I did. I love getting lost in stories. So those are my realistic fiction picks for you. And Miss Holly shared some great titles as well. All of these titles can be found by going to kdl.org and typing the title into the search bar. Some of these books may be available on Hoopla or Libby as ebooks or e-audiobooks if that's what you're into. But we hope you enjoy them. Let us know in the comments if you read any of them and what you think about them. And we'll look forward to seeing you and talking about books another time. Bye.